In this tutorial, I will be introducing you to the Divi theme. What makes Divi so special is that it's powered by the Divi Builder, a drag-and-drop WordPress page builder that replaces the standard WordPress post editor and allows you to build beautiful designs and diverse layouts more quickly and more easily than you ever have before. Now, what you're looking at here is a very basic layout built with Divi. Everything built with Divi is comprised of sections, rows, and modules. Sections are your largest organizational element. They house various rows of columns, and inside of each row are modules. So, looking at this page, we have a single section, this big white bar here, and inside that section, we have a row comprised of two columns. Inside of one column here on the right, we have an image module, and inside this column on the left, we have a text module. And Divi comes with dozens of different modules that you can place inside of these different row types. And rows can be made to have different numbers of columns. So let's move into the Divi Builder and see what this looks like within the Builder interface. So I'm going to head over to the Divi Builder, and as you can see, we have the section here. That's the blue element. And inside that section, we have the row. As I said, this is a two-column row. And inside the first column, we have a text module. And inside the second column, we have an image module. And any number of modules can be added inside of a column, and any number of rows can be added inside of a section, and any number of sections can be added to a page. Also, elements can be moved within the page. So if I wanted to switch the position of this text module to be on the right and the image to be on the left, I could do that just by dragging and dropping. And if I update the page and take a look at the front end, you'll see that those two elements have switched inside of that row. Now let's add a new row to this page to show you how that works. I'm going to click Add Row to add a new row to my section. And then I'm going to get a pop-up box here with a bunch of different column layouts to choose from. I can do just a one-column full width row. I can do a one-half row, a three-column, four-column, and a bunch of different variations in between. So in this case, I'm going to do a one-third, one-third, one-third row and add that. So you can see a new row has been added below my first row, and I have a bunch of empty columns here. Then I need to add modules to those columns, just like I have in the first row. And if I click any of the Insert Module buttons here, I'm going to get a new pop-up with a list of all the different modules that Divi comes with. And there's countless modules here, and you can do so much with each of these modules in combination on your page. And I don't want to go over every single module right now. In fact, we have an individual tutorial that goes over each of these modules in depth. And so I recommend that you head back to the Divi documentation page when you're done listening to this overview and dig deep into the different tutorials we have there to really learn about each of these modules, if any of them are giving you any trouble. So in this case, I'm going to add some more images, just like I have on my page already. So I'm going to click on the image module. And once you click on any module, you're going to get the module settings. All module settings are comprised of three tabs: the General Settings, the Advanced Design Settings, and the Custom CSS Settings. As a general philosophy, everything you need to create a great page using standard Divi modules is right here in the General Settings. And if you ever want to explore outside of those settings because you want additional control over the look and feel of that module, then you can venture into the Advanced Design Settings. And if you happen to be a web developer and you know how to code CSS, then you can delve even further into the Custom CSS tab. And here we have broken down each of the elements within the module, and you can just type in Custom CSS right here. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on the general settings. And like I said, there's no need to go into these different tabs unless you really want additional control. And that's why we've separated them, to keep the general settings simple and to the point. And if you want more information about the general settings and custom CSS settings, we have tutorials that go over those specifically. So I would recommend you check those out as well. Now, when you look at the general settings, you're going to see various settings, and these settings are going to be different for each module that you add to your page. In this case, we're adding an image module, and so I have only a few settings here, and they relate to images. The first being the option to upload an image, and so I'm going to do that first. I'm going to click the Upload Image button and upload an image from my library. And then moving down here, you can also do things like add your alt text, give the image a title. You can choose to have this image open in a lightbox, which I will do. And you can also choose the intro animation. So by default, when you scroll down the page, this image will load in with a specific animation. You can choose that. And you can choose the alignment. And you can also choose an admin label. And this is what appears within the builder when you're looking at the module. So right now it just says image, but if you have a pretty big page going and you want to remember what each of these modules are more easily, you can input a title here. So I'll just say profile pic and save. And as you can see, my profile pic image module has been added to the first column in the row. And let's do the same thing for these other columns. I'm going to add an image to each of those. Okay, so I've added a new 3-column row, and in each of the 3 columns I've added a new image. And so if I update this page, and if we refresh our page here, you're going to see a new row below this one, and 3 images in equal-sized columns, 3 columns in that row. So I'm refreshing. As I scroll down, you can see the images have been added. Now, you will notice that in addition to module settings, rows and sections also have settings as well. And by the way, if you ever want to re-access the settings of a particular module, just click the settings icon here on the left, and that will relaunch the settings pop-up, and you can adjust all the settings for that module that you added to the page previously. And like I said, there's also settings for rows and sections. So if you click that settings icon on the row, you're going to get a bunch of row settings. And there's quite a few settings here to go through, but I'm not going to touch on these right now. And if you'd like to learn more about the various row settings and all of the section settings, we have 2 new tutorials that focus just on those. So I would suggest heading back to the documentation page when you're done with the basic intro here to learn more about some of these more advanced settings. In this case, I really don't need to modify the row settings, and to create basic layouts, you probably won't need to either. But I will touch on one common setting, which is the background color setting for sections. And what I'm going to do is actually add a whole new section below this current section. And then I'm going to add some, horizontal division between these 2 pieces of content by assigning a background color to my new section. That way the 2 pieces of content seem separate. This is kind of a nice way to create a fun flow to the page. And so to add a new section to the page, you're going to want to click the Add New Section button. And you'll notice that there actually are a couple different section types that you can add. And I'm going to get into those a little bit later. But for now, I'm just going to click the Add Standard Section button. And I'm going to choose how many rows I would like to add. 4 columns. And then like before, I'm going to want to add some modules into each of these columns. And so what I'm going to do is add a blurb module. And what a blurb module is just a small piece of text content along with a title and an icon. And these are pretty commonly found, at the top of websites on home pages. Just gives a nice little kind of intro to your services and what you offer. So I'm just going to give it a title here and call it blurb module. I'm going to assign an icon to it. So I'm going to give it an icon. I'm going to choose an icon color. And I'm going to choose a text color. So I'm going to make my text color light. And I'm going to make my text orientation centered. And I'm going to copy in some content to be placed below the title. And so I've added a new blurb. And any module, row, or section can be duplicated instantly by clicking the duplicate icon. So to speed things up a bit, since I know I want to add 4 blurbs, 1 to each column, I'm just going to duplicate this 3 times and move each blurb into its own column. Next up, I'm going to adjust the background color of that section. So I'm going to open up the section settings and look for the background color option here. And then I'm going to choose a custom background color and make it like a nice dark gray. Now, since I made my section background color dark gray and I made my blurb text light, it's going to show up quite nicely, and it's going to be very different from the section above it, which I showed you previously, which has a white background and dark text. So if we refresh our page and scroll down, you'll notice that this new section has been added along with the blurbs and their pink icons. And so you can see how section background colors can be very useful, and how organizing your content, organizing your rows into different sections can lead to a big diversity of layout combinations. So that's a basic kind of overview of modifying a Divi layout. But let's start from scratch, because I know you've just installed the Divi builder, and you're probably wondering how to get started right away. And to do that, we're going to create a whole new page. So I'm going to go over to my dashboard, go over to Pages, and click Add New. And the first thing you're going to want to do to use the Divi builder is enable it. And you'll see a big button here that says Use the Divi builder. And what this is going to do is enable the Divi builder and disable the standard post editor that you see here. So I click this, and as you can see, that layout that you were looking at earlier has been added, and the standard tiny MCE WordPress post editor has been removed. And you're greeted with a section and an empty empty row here. And the first thing you're going to want to do is add some columns. So just like before, we'll be constructing this new fresh page by adding some content, starting with a row. So in this case, I think this will be a Contact Us page. And so what I'm going to do is add a new 1/2 column. And on the left here, I'm going to add some text. Maybe just talking about our company and giving some, contact information, maybe a phone number, an address, so on. And then to the right of that, I'm going to add a contact form. So Divi has a contact form module. So I'm just going to scroll through and find that contact module and add it to the page. Here it is, contact form. And like all of our modules, there's various settings here. You're going to want to type in the email address where the email should be sent to. So I'm going to change it to nick@elegantthemes.com. You can give it a title. Let's say Contact Us. And like before, you can give it an admin label. And also a CSS ID and CSS class if you want to customize this a bit in your child theme. So I'm going to save this to the page. I've added some text in a contact form. Let's just let's take a little peek at our layout so far. If we view the page, you'll see that we have 2 columns, 1 row with that text module on the contact form. So there we have it. Much like how we started originally with that 2-column row, that single row, I mean. And like I said, we have the text here and a contact form. Okay, so now that we're starting to build our own page, let me introduce you to something new, which is the full width section. So remember how I said before there's actually a couple different section types? Actually, there's 3. There's a standard section, which can house any row type and just about any module. And then there's full width sections, which, unlike the standard section, these full width sections extend the entire width of the browser, and they have their own set of modules that can be added. So I'm going to add a full width section, and you can see it's a different color. It's purple, just to let you know this is a full width section, not a standard section. And much like a standard section, you can insert modules. Now you can't insert columns into a full width section because it's always extending the full width of the page, just 1 column. And so I'm going to click Insert Module and choose from the various modules available for full width sections. In this case, I'm going to add a full width slider. This is a very common thing to add at the top of your page. You'll probably be using sliders a lot on your home page. And so let me show you how to add a slider pretty quick here. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you open up the slider settings is add a new slide. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a new slide. I'm going to give it some title text. You can give it some buttons as well. So I might say, join today. You can give it a URL as well as a background image. So I'm going to upload a nice background image for this slide. You can choose a background color. In this case, I don't really need a background color since I have a background image. You can also upload a slide image to accompany your text. In this case, I'm just going to stick with text by itself. You can also upload a video. You can adjust your text color. In this case, I have a dark background color, so I'm just going to keep light text. And you can even upload background videos. But like I said, I have a background image, so I don't need to upload a background image and a background video. So I'm just going to stick with the image for now. And then you can add some content to the slide, just some text to be displayed along with your title. And I'm going to save, and so I've added a new slide to my sliders, you can see here. And I'm just going to duplicate this, and then edit my second slide. And I'm going to upload a new image for this one, a new background image. And save. And there we go. So I've added a new slider and added 2 slides. And like I said, this is a full width section, so it's going to extend the full width of the page. So if I go back to my page here and refresh, you'll see that a new full width slider has been added with my background image, the text, and the custom button text. And to access my second slide, I can slide over here to go there. And as I can see here, I probably want to make this text color dark since this is such a light background. So I could probably go back here, go back and edit my slide, change the text color to dark, save, refresh, and then we can take a look at that change. So like I said, at any time if you want to edit a module, it's pretty easy just to go back in those settings and make those adjustments. Alright, so that's a basic overview of building your new page with Divi. And if at any time you want to switch back to the standard post editor, you want to stop using the Divi builder, that's fine. Just click the Use Default Editor up here, and that's going to remove your builder content and switch back to the standard post editor. Of course, it's a little dangerous because you are going to have all your content removed, obviously. You're going to lose all that content. So it gives you a little warning here just to make sure you really want to switch back. And if you do, click yes, and it's going to wipe the slate clean. And you're going to have just whatever content you had here before you started. So next up, I'm going to show you something that will hopefully speed up your design process quite a bit, and that's what's called the Divi Library, and including pre-made layouts that ship with Divi. So this is a great starting point if you're just beginning with the theme. And if you want more information about the Divi Library, be sure to check out the full tutorial on the Divi Library, as well as various subsequent tutorials about different aspects of the Divi Library, such as global modules, how to import and export your Divi library to different websites. We find that as people use the Divi library more and more and have this collection of web design elements that they use to build their websites and their clients' websites, it's nice to be able to take that toolkit with you wherever you go. And so what I'm going to do is start back with the Divi Builder. I'm going to click Use the Divi Builder, but this time instead of starting from scratch, I'm going to click the Load from Library button. And what this is going to do is load up my Divi library as well as the pre-made layouts that ship with Divi. And since I actually haven't saved anything to the Divi library, I don't have anything in my library. Actually, I have one that I've saved. But what you will see is all the predefined layouts that ship with Divi. So we have a bunch of different layouts that you can load instantly for just about every thing you need to do. There's About Us pages, contact pages. So instead of building that contact page I just built, I could have just loaded this right in and would have saved me a lot of time. So we have a lot of great layouts that we've designed that we think look good, that you're free to use to really jumpstart your new website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the home page layout here and load that in. And boom, you can see it just loads all these modules in a really great configuration that we've picked out just for you. And if we update that page and take a look, you're going to see that this layout has been totally pre-configured. It looks like a really modern homepage layout. You have the slider and those blurbs that we were using earlier. We have a nice call to action module. an image, some number counters, another slider, some more blurbs, more sliders, you know, all the stuff you need for your modern homepage. So yeah, so that's how you use the Divi library to load layouts. And not only can you use the Divi library to load layouts, you can also save layouts to the Divi library. So let's say you've been configuring this page for a while and you want to use it again on your next website. Well, that's great. You can click Save to Library, give it a name, save it, and now it's been added to your library. Next time you want to use it, just click Load from Library, go over to the Add from Library tab, and that new layout I just saved is right here, and I can load it in. And you can also do that for all sections and rows and modules as well. So like I said, let's say I've configured this section. I like to use this combination, you know, of elements. These 2 rows of blurbs. I like to use that on all my new home pages, and so I don't want to have to build it every single time I create a new home page. I just want to save this to library. So what I can do is say Save and Add to Library. Give it a name. Say Homepage Blurbs. Add it to a category. Save. And then next time you want to add a new section, you can click the Add from Library button, and you'll get a list of all your saved library items, in which case this homepage blurbs, I can just click that, and as you can see, they've been added. That's a really basic overview of the Divi library and how you can save elements for later use. And if you want to learn more about that, and there's a lot more to learn and a lot of cool stuff there, and so I really recommend you check out the Divi library tutorials. So we're just about to wrap up here, but there's one more thing I want to show you in the builder, and that is the use of specialty sections, which is the third section type that I alluded to earlier. And to add a specialty section, you just click the Add Specialty Section button down here. And what specialty sections are, and you get an idea from these column structures here, is that they're more advanced column structures, and they have what can typically be seen as a sidebar layout. And so they have these areas of horizontal division here on the right, these sidebars that extend the full height of the row next to more complex layouts. So for example, on the left here, here's a typical right sidebar with a variable, you know, column structures to the left of it. So I might add that. And as you can see, this is a different color to show that it's a specialty section. And on the right here, I could add a sidebar. For example, there's a sidebar module that you can use with Divi, so I might add a sidebar on the right. And on the left here, I can insert a bunch of different column types. So I can start constructing a whole different kind of layout here to the left of my sidebar. And so that's just a basic overview of specialty sections. And if you want to learn more about all the different section types and section options, again, we have a whole tutorial for that, so go ahead and take a look at the section tutorial back in the Divi documentation. So that's a pretty good overview of the Divi builder. And as far as the Divi theme as a whole is concerned, there's only one more thing I want to touch on in this brief overview, and that is the Divi theme customizer. And the Divi theme customizer is an incredibly powerful and useful tool because it allows you to easily customize just about every design aspect of your site with just a few clicks of the mouse. So if you launch the theme customizer here, hover over the Divi link on the left and click the theme customizer link, you're going to be brought to the WordPress theme customizer. On the right, you're going to be given a preview of your website, and on the left, you're going to be shown a bunch of different design controls that you can apply to your site and view the changes in real time. And so we have a bunch of tutorials again about this, but I'm just going to give you a little basic taste of what's available here. For example, if I wanted to change the typography of my site, I could go over to the general settings and typography and start adjusting my body text size, for example. Maybe adjust the spacing between each line, adjust the header sizes, you know, the letter spacing in the header. I might apply some unique font styles to my headers, change the fonts completely. I might do some more drastic things like enable boxed layout and adjust maybe the gutter widths between my modules. As you can see, the spacing between columns. I can adjust the height of sections, the height of rows. There's really no end to what you can do here. Moving into the header navigation, you can adjust your menu bar, the colors in your menu, adjust the font sizes, adjust your logo height, as you can see. adjust the background colors. If I want to make my background color like a dark blue, and maybe make my link colors white. It's really just takes a few clicks, and you're getting a completely different design. And so yeah, I'd recommend you explore the theme customizer and see what you can do here, and check out those tutorials. And that just about wraps up the basic overview and introduction of Divi. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'm sure you're going to absolutely love using Divi. And if you have any questions, be sure to visit us in the support forums, and also go ahead and go to the main documentation page, and that's elegantthemes.com/gallery/divi/documentation, and we have just dozens and hours of tutorials there that touch on every aspect of Divi. So if there's anything you want to know, I can almost guarantee you it's in the documentation. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to use the Divi module customizer. Now, Divi comes with two customizers: the theme customizer, which is used to adjust site-wide settings like the body and header text of your entire website. But on the other hand, there's also the module customizer, which is used to adjust the styles of individual modules across the entire website. For example, if you don't like the size of the slider, maybe you want to make it a little smaller, you think all of your sliders are taking up a bit too much space, well, you can head over to the module customizer, reduce that padding, maybe reduce the size of the header text, and so on, and then every time you add a new slider, it's going to adhere to those styles. So first things first, let's access the module customizer, and to do that, you're going to want to head over to your WordPress dashboard, and then find the Divi link, hover over it, and then click the module customizer button. This is going to load up the module customizer, and on the left you're going to see a list of all the modules that come with Divi. And if you open up any of these tabs, you're going to get a list of settings for that module. And these settings are limited to usually text sizes, styles, and also some spacing adjustments. Of course, you can always adjust just about anything related to a module by opening up the module settings, the individual module settings, and adjusting the advanced settings in the advanced settings tab. But if you want to do something a little bit quicker and simpler, and like I said, adjust basic font styles and spacing, then you can do so in the the module customizer. And when you edit something in the module customizer, it affects the modules on your entire website. So it's if you want to make one change site-wide, this is a much better way to do it. So like I said, let's say I wanted to reduce the size of this slider. Well, I can head over to the full width slider panel here, which will reveal the various settings that are available for this module, and I can reduce the padding by sliding down the padding. I can reduce the header size, and I can even adjust some styling here. Maybe I want to make it bold and all caps like that. And you can see with a few clicks here we've done everything that we wanted. We reduced the size, changed the style a little bit, reduced the header size, and now every time I make a new slider it's going to look like that. So, and you can kind of do this for just about every module. So heading into, let's say, the blurbs, if you want to make all your blurbs titles a little bit bigger or smaller, you can do that, and you can see the live change here. And yep, you can do the same thing for just about every module. So here I have my counters. Head over to the number counter, and I can adjust the font styles here. So maybe I don't want it to be underlined, maybe I want it to be a little bit bigger or smaller, maybe smaller and bold would look nice. Yep. So yep, you can do that for just about every module, like I said. So yeah, I'm not going to bother going through every single module here because most of the settings are pretty similar, and what you can do is pretty similar. So if you ever find yourself wanting to adjust the style of a certain module, to head over to the module customizer and take a look at the settings that are available to you. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to use the Divi theme customizer to customize the appearance of your website for specific mobile devices. The Divi Theme Customizer allows you to adjust text sizes, header sizes, and spacing for individual mobile device types. So you can have a different, sized body font on smartphones if you think that, maybe the text needs to be a little bit bigger to be easier to read. And then maybe you want a little bit less big on tablet and maybe a little bit even smaller on desktop. So you can adjust all those accordingly, as well as different, padding and height values on your site. So to get started, we're going to enter the theme customizer by going to the WordPress dashboard. Look for the Divi tab here, and then click the theme customizer link. And this will launch the theme customizer with all the hundreds of settings that we have here. But in this tutorial, I'm going to be focusing just on the mobile styles panel, which has all the mobile styling options. If you want to learn about all this other stuff, we have separate tutorials for general settings, header navigation, buttons, and so on, as well as just a general overview tutorial of the theme customizer. So be sure to check those out if you want to learn more. And in this case, I'm going to be clicking on the mobile styles panel to launch the mobile styles customizer. And as you see, it gives you a nice preview here depending on what type of style you're editing. So if you want to edit phone styles, it's going to shrink down and give you a phone size preview. If you want to edit tablet styles, it's going to expand back to a tablet style size. And so we have various settings here that we can adjust. We can increase the body font size, increase or decrease the header size as well. And then in addition, you can adjust the spacing between sections and rows. So if you want to decrease this or increase it, maybe you think that there's too much wasted space here for your taste, you can bring down the section height and also the row heights as well. So you can adjust the distance between individual rows, as you can see there, all the way down to nothing if you like, and as well as sections. And if any time you don't like what you've done, you want to go back to the default styles, just click these reset buttons and it'll revert all the changes you've made. Next is you can go into the phone and also adjust these independently from the tablet style. So all of these will work on their own and overwrite each other as you reduce your screen size down to each of these breakpoints. And again, you can do the same stuff. You can increase and decrease the body and header font size, as well as the section padding and row padding. Finally, we have the mobile menu. When your site breaks down to mobile device size, the menu changes, and it gives you the standard hamburger icon, and the menu slides down altogether, unlike how you see in desktop where all the links are in a row here, and they each have their own drop-down menus. But you can customize all of this as well, so you can change the background color if you like, and change the text color like that. And you can hide the logo image as well, which I might want to do at this point because my logo image doesn't go so good with this background color. I'd probably want to upload a white image in this case if I was going for a dark blue background. Yep, that's a basic overview of the mobile styles customization in the theme customizer. And you can see here how you can create different mobile experiences for different devices using the customizer settings. In this tutorial, I'm going to be giving you an overview of the Divi Fullwidth header module, which is one of the most versatile modules in the Divi collection because it has so many different layout possibilities. And I think you'll find yourself using the Fullwidth header module for various situations throughout your website, and maybe not even just for headers. So the most basic application of the header module is to place some header text at the very top of your page. And in this case, this page is a perfect example of a page that's in need of a header because between my blurbs here and the menu, there's really nothing to signify what this page is about. So if someone lands on this page, they're going to be quite confused, having to read paragraphs of text to figure out what's going on. So I'm going to want to give this a nice title, maybe welcome them to my page, and the Fullwidth header module is the perfect way to do that. So I'm going to edit this page to bring up the Divi builder. And then I'm going to add a new Fullwidth section because since we're dealing with a Fullwidth header module, it needs to be placed inside of a Fullwidth section. So I add that Fullwidth section, drag it to the top of the page, click Insert Module, and look for the Fullwidth header module. And this is going to bring up the Fullwidth header module settings, of which there are quite a few. But in its most basic form, you only need to fill out a couple of these settings, which is the title, which is the main header text. So I'm just going to say, welcome to my website. I'm going to give some subheading, which is like a smaller bit of text below the title, and this is optional, but I'm going to add it in this case. And then you're going to want to give your text a text color, whether it be light or dark, and probably assign a background color to the module as well, if you so choose. And in this case, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make my text color light, and then give my Fullwidth header a purple background color. And there we have it. We have a very basic header here. Just some text and a background color, and it's going to span the full width of the page, since it is a Fullwidth header module. And so let me show you what that looks like. So we have it. And this is a great way to kind of, just to introduce your visitors to the page using the Fullwidth header module. And so now that I've shown you kind of like the most basic application, let's explore a lot of those other settings to see how this module can be expanded in so many different ways. So I'm going to go back here and take a look at some of these other settings and explain to you what they do. First, we have text and logo orientation. This is going to affect where your text is located on the page, whether it be left, right, or center. So I could center it if I wanted, or put it to the right. In this case, I'm going to make it centered. Next is the full screen option. What this will do is automatically extend the module to be the full height and the full width of the screen. And so no matter what size your browser window is, that module is going to adapt to the size. And this is a great way to kind of create a what is a very common like splash screen effect on the home page of your website, where you create this full screen kind of introductory block, and it fills the whole screen, and it makes it really easy for your visitors to digest what's going on the page. So they see your title, your logo, maybe like a button, a call to action button to either scroll down the screen or sign up to your service or whatever you're trying to do. So I'm going to make this full screen just to give you an idea what that looks like, and I'm going to save just what I have there, because those are two pretty big changes. So I'm going to show you what that does exactly. And so when I go back to my page, this is what we had before. I'm going to refresh, and it's going to make this text centered, and it's also going to make it full screen. So there you go. It gets centered both vertically and horizontally. It gets placed in the center. And this is just like a beautiful way to be introduced to a website. It's very simple and very clear to the visitor. And then they can scroll down to see the rest of the website. And like I said, if you make this browser smaller, it's all going to adapt automatically on the fly. So now let's take a look at a few of the other options. Moving down here, we can add a scroll down button. That's just like a little arrow that appears at the bottom of the section, just to remind your visitors that there's more content down there to explore. That even though it looks like this full screen is all that's there, maybe they don't notice there's a scroll bar on the right. Well, we can add a little nice icon there, and that's going to tell them to go downward, and also if they click it, it's going to automatically bring them down to the next section. So let's turn that on and just choose kind of a standard down arrow icon. You can also add a button. So if you want to add a button and have it do something, for example, if whatever service you have, you want to invite them to sign up to your service, request a quote or whatever, this is a great place to do that. So I'm going to say request a quote today. I'm going to add a URL. And you can add two buttons. So you can also add a second button if you like, but I'm just going to do the one for now. And you can upload a background image too. So if you decide you'd rather have a background image instead of a background color, that's fine. And if you do upload a background image, you can also do a background color overlay over that image. So in this case, let's say I'm going to choose a nice background image here, maybe this image of this woman in the field. And I want to maybe put an overlay over that to tone it down a little bit. And so my text shows up a little better. Because I think right now the white text over this light yellow image is going to be hard to read. And so we can just put an overlay on top of that. And I'm just going to make it, let's see here, give it kind of a blue-gray color like this. I'm going to bring down the alpha transparency there, maybe to around 50%. And then we'll see what that looks like. And then I probably want to make this something a little bit less vibrant. And you can also choose to use a parallax effect. So if you turn that on, you'll be able to choose between two parallax methods, true parallax or CSS. And what that does is kind of create an illusion of movement and depth as you scroll down the page. The parallax image in the background will move at a slightly different pace than you're scrolling. And like I said, it creates that illusion of depth. And so I'm going to save and exit and take a look at what we've created so far. So if you remember, this is what we had before, and what I changed here is that I added a background image, I added a button, and I added an overlay color. So if we refresh, we're going to take a look at that. See, I have my image, and you can see it's been kind of muted and toned down by that kind of blue-gray overlay at 50% opacity. I have a button here. It's kind of a standard button. And I also have this scroll down button, and when you click this, you're going to be brought down to the next step. And like I said, it has a parallax effect attached to it, so you can see that the image is just moving at a slightly different pace, and it just creates this really nice subtle effect there. So moving back to these options, there's a few more things to consider. One is that you, in addition to your logo or to your text, you can also upload a logo image. And what a logo image is it's an image placed above your text. And so if you have an image you'd like to place above your text, you can do that. So I have like just a nice Divi logo here, and I can upload that, and that'll be placed above the text. You can also choose your vertical alignment, which there's vertical and horizontal alignment settings, but vertical alignment is where your text and logo are centered vertically. And I'm going to keep that centered because I think that looks quite nice. So I'm going to save. And maybe we'll explore a different vertical alignment in a moment. So I've added that logo image. You can see it gets placed above the text. Moving on to some more settings. In addition to adding a logo image, which is typically a smaller image placed above your text, you can have a larger image placed below your text as well, or to the right or the left of your text, depending on how your text and image are oriented. And so that would be the header image. So I can upload a header image as well. And you can upload any image you like, so I'm just going to choose this. And since I'm uploading an image, I'm probably going to want to tone down that background a bit more, so I'm going to bring down the opacity here, make it a little more muted, and then I've added a header image which is going to be placed below my text, and then I can choose the vertical alignment, which I'm going to keep that centered for now. And then in addition, you can add a paragraph of text as well to be placed below your main title and subhead. So I'll do that next, but let's just take a look at what this header image looks like. So now when I refresh, I have this header image placed below the logo and the title, and I've really bumped up that background overlay, which looks a lot nicer now. So we just have a very, very subtle background image, and then this header image below it. Now, like I said, you can change the alignment of these things too. So if you want to put your text and logo to the left or right, you can do that as well. So let's try putting it to the left and see what kind of new effect that creates. So here we have it centered, and when we put it to the left, it's going to be placed to the left of the image. And so in this case, when I'm trying to put so much content in the header, sometimes this looks nicer, just depending on how big your logo image is. Maybe if my logo image was a little smaller, it might fit a little better above that image. Or if this image was, a little bit less tall, it might fit a little better centered. In this case, this right and left orientation looks quite nice. Now, in addition to being able to control where this is located, you can also control where this image is located independently of where the text and logo is located. And so you'll notice there are a couple different vertical alignment settings. One's for the text and logo, and then one is for the image. So you move down here, image vertical alignment, and you can choose centered or bottom. And if I choose bottom, it's going to always stick to the bottom of the section, which is nice if you want to create that effect. Like often this is used to kind of create the illusion that the image is sitting behind the section below it. Like maybe you have like an iPad or an iPhone or something, and it's coming up, from below this section. That's how you do that. You choose the bottom alignment, especially when you combine that with a parallax background image like we have here. It really looks like that the image is kind of sitting below the section below it. And so that's quite a cool effect. And so you can see how you can kind of combine these different settings to create a bunch of different layouts. You can have actually over 20 different layouts. You can have the text left, right, top, bottom, vertically aligned in different locations, and you can have the image independently vertically aligned in different locations as well. And depending on how you combine that, you might get the image in the left, image in the left center, logo on the right, logo centered, and so on. So yeah, that's a basic overview of the header module general settings. And there's also a ton of advanced settings that you can use as well. And I'm not going to go over all of these right now. If you'd like to learn more about our advanced design settings, be sure to check out our advanced design settings tutorial, as well as our custom CSS settings tutorial. But as a general philosophy, everything you need to create a really great full width header module is already in the general settings. But if you want like additional control, you really want to customize it, then you can move on to the advanced design settings and kind of tweak things using all of the advanced design controls that we've created here. For example, you can customize everything about the button and the size of the font, and the fonts themselves, the font styles, and all of that great stuff. So yep, that's a basic overview of the full width header module. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to use the Divi code module. Now, the code module is basically a blank canvas that allows you to put shortcodes or static HTML into your post. So instead of using a text module or adding it to some other module, this just gives you a complete blank slate. For example, if you're using a slider plugin, a third-party slider plugin, and you'd like to place their slider inside of Divi, well, just input a code module, copy it and paste their shortcode, and you're going to have their slider display beautifully. You could even put it in a full width code module, so there's a full width code module available as well. So if you're using some other slider plugin and you want to have a full width slider that you think works a little bit better for your website than the Divi slider, just input a full width code module, copy and paste that shortcode in, and it's going to work great. So that's what the code module is for. And I'm going to give you an example. So I'm using the Bloom plugin, or Bloom email opt-in plugin, and Bloom lets you generate an email opt-in form as a shortcode and put it anywhere on your website. So here I have a blog post, and at the bottom of this blog post, I would like to invite people to sign up to my newsletter using Bloom, and I can do that using the shortcode and the code module. So I'm going to head over to my dashboard and go to the Bloom opt-in forms. And you can see I've created an opt-in form here. If you're not familiar with Bloom, that's okay. I'm just going here to grab the shortcode. So here's the form I'd like to add. I'm going to copy and paste this shortcode. So a lot of plugins work this way. They'll generate shortcodes for you, and you can place them on your site. So I've copy and pasted that shortcode. Now I'm going to edit the post and scroll down to the bottom. And I'm going to replace that call to action with a new section. I'm going to input a single one column row, and then I'm going to scroll down to the code module here. And there's only one field in the code module, which is the content. I'm going to copy and paste that shortcode. You can also adjust your admin label and CSS ID and CSS class if you like, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. So I'm going to input my shortcode, update the page, and now when I refresh, you're going to see that shortcode has been used to display my opt-in form at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to get the post here, and there you see the opt-in form. Yep, so that's a basic overview of the Divi code module that you can use to input shortcodes and code anywhere that you use the Divi builder. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to export your Divi library from one website and then import it into a new website. This can be particularly useful if you're a freelance WordPress developer and you're starting a new build for a new client and you want to bring that Divi library that you've spent so much time building over to the new website so you don't have to start from scratch. You can start using all of your pre-made layouts, all your saved modules, sections, and rows, and so on. So exporting the Divi library is quite easy. Just go over to the Divi section here in your WordPress dashboard, and then click the Divi library link. At the top here, you're going to see an Export Divi Layouts tab. Click that to bring down the export dialog, and then select any or all of the library types that you'd like to export: layouts, sections, rows, and modules. I'm just going to export all of them, but you can export just one of them or a combination of them if you like. And then click the Download Export File link. This is going to download an XML file to your computer, and then you're going to want to upload that to your new website. So head over to your new website, go back to your dashboard, and then you're going to want to import that file using the WordPress importer. So under Tools, click the Import link, and then click the WordPress link. And this is going to prompt you to install the WordPress importer if you haven't already installed it. So go ahead and install the WordPress importer plugin, and click the Activate plugin and Run Importer link. And this is going to bring you to a new page with a upload button, and you're going to want to click the Choose File button and select that XML file from your computer that you just downloaded from your other website. And once you've selected that XML file, click the Upload File and Import button. And that's going to bring you to a new page where you can assign an author to these posts, or they're technically post types. So if you want to assign yourself as the author, you can do that. Or if you don't, it's going to create a new author account. And then just click Submit. And there you go. In my case, I'm just uploading these to the same site, so I'm getting all these warnings that these layouts already exist. That's because I already have these items in my library. But in your case, you'll be starting fresh. And then once you have uploaded all of your items and you head over to your Divi library, you're going to see that everything has been loaded in here. And that's how you import and export Divi library items. In this tutorial, I'm going to be giving you an overview of Divi rows and the row options that come with them. Now, a row is the main organizational element in Divi, and it's how you create columns. So, Divi is made up of sections, rows, and modules. Sections are your largest organizational element, and sections contain rows inside of them. So, for example, here is a section with a white background, and inside of it I have two rows, this one here and this one here, and each of those rows have 3 columns. And inside each of the columns I have a single module. And if I were to edit this page and take a look at the structure, you'd see that structure reflected in the Divi builder. And so I'm looking at the second area here, this main section that had the white background, and then 2 rows. Rows are the green things here. Each with 3 columns. That's what a row is. It's the main organizational element, and you can support various column structures. For example, if at any time you want to change a column structure, you can click the column structure icon here and get all the different column structures that rows support. So I have a 3-column row right now. If I want to change this to a 4-column row, for example, I could do that and add another blurb like that. And rows support various options as well. So if you bring up the row options, you're going to get a bunch of different stuff organized into 3 different tabs: the general settings, the advanced settings, and then custom CSS. Generally, everything you need to use a row and to use it well is in the general settings. But if you want some extra control, I want to kind of go above and beyond and customize the row a bit, you can head over to the advanced design settings, which has all kinds of great options. And if you're more of a developer and you don't want to use our design controls, well, then you can kind of input your own custom CSS in here, targeting the before and after pseudo elements, as well as the main element, which is the row itself. But in this tutorial, I'm just going to give you a basic overview of all these different row settings and kind of how they can be used together to create some really unique layouts. Using rows are kind of like the best way to diversify the content on your page, because they really just control how everything is organized. The modules that are themselves kind of the size and the shape and the position of the modules themselves on your page are kind of dictated by the rows. And so rows are very important when kind of creating a good flow on the page. And so first, let's take a look at some of these basic options. So I'm going to delete the other row. Now I just have this 4-column row that I created with 4 different blurb modules inside of it. And I'm just going to update the page really quick so you can see what we're starting with here. And view the page. You can see here's this white section in the single 4-column row with 4 blurbs inside of it. So let's take a peek at these options. I'm going to open up the Options tab. And the first option you see is make this row full width. What this does is it allows the row to break from the standard content width. So by default, every section and row on the page, except for a full width section, is limited to the content width that you define in the customizer or the default content width of the theme. But if you'd like to break this and let the row extend to the full width of the browser, then you can do that by clicking this. So if I say make this full width and save, you're going to see that change reflected on the page here. So I'm going to refresh, and you're going to watch these blurbs extend to the edge here. Oops, I forgot I need to accidentally duplicated this. Let me delete that. And refresh again. And you can see these modules are getting close to the edge here. So one thing you can do with this effect, this full width effect, is create a full width image gallery of sorts. So I'm going to show you how to do that, which is kind of one of the main use cases for this full width row option that I'm showing you now. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all these blurbs, and instead I'm going to insert some images. So I'm going to insert an image module. I'm going to put a different image inside each of these columns. So I'm going to choose a different image for each. Okay, so I now have a full width row with an image inside of each of the 4 columns. So once again, I'm going to head and update this so we can take a look, refresh the page. So those blurbs are going to be deleted, and in their place I've added 4 images, as you can see. So, and you can also see that the width of the images, the width of the row is much bigger than the rest of the page. So everything else kind of stops at 1080 pixels. This keeps going to the edge. But we can push that even further by kind of delving even deeper into the row options, which brings me to the next option I want to talk about, which is the gutter width option. And what this does is reduces the spacing between each of the columns. So you can either increase that spacing, or in this case, I actually want to decrease it all the way down to nothing so that those images end up touching each other. And so I'm going to take this gutter width and bring it all the way down to 1, which is the smallest gutter width, which will result in no space between each of the columns and no space between the modules either. And I can also adjust the padding. So rows have padding by default above and below them, which kind of separates them, the content, from each other. So usually you don't want, like text in 2 columns or 2 rows touching each other. You want some space, so by default there's space. But in this case, I actually want them to be touching, so I want to remove that padding. So I'm going to set both these to 0. And it'll kind of give you an idea of what that does. So I'm going to update this, and when I do, you'll see that the images are now touching because I have reduced the gutter width to 0 on this column. So here you go, all of the images are touching. And I can even take that a bit further by editing the section and removing the padding from there as well. So go over to the top and bottom padding of the section, make it 0. Update, and then you can see how we've kind of transformed this column in this section entirely into something completely different. So now we have this full width column of images, row of images that touch each other, and extend the full width of the browser. And you can use this kind of technique with other things besides just images too, and which is going to bring me into some more settings in the advanced tab of the row. So I'm going to explore some of these advanced settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this. So change this column structure back to 1/2, 1/2. I'm going to get rid of all these images, and in their place I'm going to add some blurbs back, which is what we started with. So I'm going to add some blurbs. I'm just going to say, call it blurb title, the URL. It's going to go nowhere. I'm going to use an icon. I'm going to choose an icon here. I'm going to make the icon color, well, I'm not going to change that yet. Moving on, I'm going to make the text orientation center, and then I'm going to add some text in the blurb. Okay, so we've added back a standard blurb. I'm going to duplicate it and put it over into the other column there. So now we have two blurbs in a 1/2, 1/2 column. And this is going to look similar to what we started with. But in this case, like I said, this text isn't going to look so good when it's touching the edges, right? So remember when we removed that padding from the row to let the images touch the edge of the sections above and below it? Well, here is why we usually have padding in those rows, because letting text touch other text kind of just looks funky. It's hard to read. So in this case, I'm going to use the custom padding inside the blurb to get rid of that. So I'm going to go into the blurb and adjust some of these advanced design settings to kind of get a different look. So I'm going to change the padding to 100 in all these areas. Change all the margins to 0. I'm going to give it a background color. So I'm going to change the background color to purple. Or let's see, let's do green. I'm going to change the text color to light. I'm going to change the header text color to light as well. Make the icon font a little larger. And I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to duplicate it into this column here. And I'm going to change the background color of this one to something different. So let's make it, how about orange? Okay, so I've added some modules, some blurb modules into this section. And because I've added padding on the inside of the module, it's going to get a similar effect to that image we had earlier, but instead this time the modules themselves are taking up the entire space, and we get that whole full width feel. So that's another way to kind of utilize that full width row option that I was referring to either. But let's step back a bit and think of another way to use that. So instead of adjusting the blurb, what I can do is actually, let's start from scratch here. So I'm going to clear this layout and show you another way to get a similar effect. So I'm going to load my pre-made layout, and I'm going to make this row full width just like I did before. I'm going to remove the gutters and the padding. Okay, so now we're back where we started before I explored the blurb options. Still looking at this full width row and gutter kind of option combination. Like I said, we've removed the gutter widths and we removed the padding, and now everything's kind of squished together. Well, another thing we can do is actually put that padding back. So let's go back and delete our custom padding here and save. And what that's going to do is make it so those modules aren't touching the edges of the row anymore, so that adds that padding back. And another thing we can do is go into the row and explore some of the advanced row settings. So this is what I want to touch on next, which is the advanced settings. And there's a lot more here. In fact, there's so much here, it's almost too much to cover. So I'm just going to pick a few options that are really relevant to what we're trying to do now, which is create a really nice full width effect. And another way to do that is to actually assign background colors to each individual column. So you'll notice in the advanced design settings of the row module, not only do you have the custom padding option, but you also have custom background colors. So I can assign background colors directly to the column itself rather than assigning it to the whole row or the module. So I can make the first column purple, I can make the second column green, and the third column blue. And then I can even increase the padding as well. So if I want to create that kind of block look, I could bring up the padding in all these areas. So maybe I want to do like 200 on the top, 100 or maybe like 80 or so on the right, and kind of duplicate that everywhere. And let's save and exit and see what this looks like. So what I've done here is I've added padding to each column, in the column itself, not the row, and I've added custom background colors to those columns. And now you're going to see the effect, which is this kind of classic full width row effect. And as you extend the browser and make it smaller, it all adapts with the browser size. In this case, I probably want to adjust these modules as well and make the text color a little bit lighter and whatnot to really kind of polish this style. And I probably want to remove the padding from the sections as well. But yeah, that's another example of how to use some of these advanced settings to get some completely different effects that were never possible before we added these row options. Another classic look would be to do the 1/2 look. Then I could get rid of this, duplicate it, maybe switch these background colors around. Maybe make this one green and this one purple. Remove the padding from here. Looks good. Okay, I'm going to save. Now instead of 3 columns, we have 2 full width 1/2 columns, as you see there. And we probably want to remove the padding from these rows as well. So going back to that option which I mentioned earlier, just so everything butts up against itself and creates this like really seamless effect. And there you go. So, yep, that's just one of the effects you can create with these row setting combinations. And the basic idea is you make the row full width, which makes it extend to the edge of the browser, and then you remove the padding from the sections and the row itself. And then you add padding to the columns inside of the rows so that there's kind of space between the content and the edge. And then you can kind of create these really cool like block layouts. And you can get much better looking effects than this. Obviously, I've kind of just chosen some random colors, but you can do some really cool things when you add background colors to these background images to the columns. So like, not only can you add a background image to a section and a row, you can add background images to the individual columns within rows now. So you really have just full control over everything within the section. And there's so much you can do when you start playing with these settings. So let me just go through some more of these settings just to make sure I touch on everything. You can also use a custom width. So instead of making it full width, if you want to make it just like a little bit bigger than your standard content, you can do that as well. So by default it's 1080, but if you want to make this row just a little bit bigger, you can just drag it out a little bit. If you do assign custom padding, we don't usually apply that custom padding to the mobile responsive version of your site, just because if, let's say you've added 300 pixels of padding and it looks great on desktop, it's probably not going to look good on mobile. But maybe in your case it does. Maybe you've just added just the right amount, in which case you can choose to apply that custom padding on mobile. And then back to these advanced settings, I already went over to the background color, but you can add background images, background videos to the rows. You can use parallax effects in your background images, and you can apply custom padding to each individual column within the row. And then finally, there's custom CSS as well. So If you really want full control, you don't want to try to use our design settings, you want to just get your hands dirty with some CSS, and you don't want to create a child theme to do that, you want to just apply some custom CSS to this particular row, well then you can do that right in here. You can even create pseudo elements, so we have the before pseudo element as well as the after pseudo element, and then just the main row itself where you can add CSS. So that's a basic overview of the row settings and kind of what you can do when you combine them in creative ways. In this tutorial, I'm going to be going over the theme customizer with a focus on the header and navigation settings. Now there's a ton of settings in the Divi theme customizer related to your navigation menu and header, and using these settings in different combinations can yield some pretty cool and unique results. So I want to kind of dig deep into those settings and show you some cool things you can do. So to access the theme customizer, you're going to want to hover over the Divi link here in your WordPress dashboard and click the theme customizer panel. And this is going to launch the theme customizer with all the different settings. And today we're going to be focusing on the header and navigation panel. So if I open up this panel, you're going to get all the settings related to the header and navigation, being this top portion here, this white bar that has my primary navigation menu, and this secondary menu here that has my social icons and secondary menu. Now if you have your social icons disabled and you haven't input a secondary navigation menu yet, then this bar isn't even going to show up at all. So you might not see this on your install, but if you assign a secondary nav in your appearances menus locations, then you're going to get that secondary bar, and you can adjust the appearance of that bar with the secondary menu settings over here. So I'm going to first focus on the header format. So these are some just a few settings that will drastically change the appearance of your header. The first being vertical navigation, which is probably the biggest change. When you enable this, it completely switches the format of your header and puts it over on the side here vertically instead of horizontally, which is pretty nice depending on the look you're going for. And you can also choose to hide your navigation on scroll. So if I were to enable this, then the navigation disappears until you scroll down the page, which is kind of a fun effect. And it gives you more room to kind of experiment with your header and your sliders. So if maybe you have a full screen header on your home page and you don't want to distract the user from that, well, you can turn off navigation until they scroll, and so like when they land on your page, they get this kind of like splash page effect with the full screen header, and then when they scroll down, their navigation menu slides in like that. Now whenever you're changing settings, you get a live preview here, as you see. But until you save and publish, these settings aren't actually being affected on the home page. So if I were to exit out of here without saving anything and go back to my live website, you'll see that my vertical navigation was never enabled and my menu is not hidden right now. So going back to the customizer then, I'm going to explore some of these other settings. So heading back to the header navigation, I'm going to take a look at the different header styles. Now we have a couple choices here. Default, which puts the logo on the left. We have centered, which puts the logo and navigation centered, but places the logo on top of the navigation. And then we have a centered inline logo, which places the logo centered in between all of your navigation items. Moving on to the primary menu bar. Like I mentioned earlier, the primary menu is this white bar here, the larger of your two menus with the logo in it. And there's a bunch of stuff you can do here, such as hide the logo image. Maybe you just want to have that fade in later on when you scroll down. You can hide it from the primary nav menu. You can make your menu full width. In this case, my screen is kind of too small to show you, but let me show you. So I'm going to enable default and then go back to primary menu and make it a full width and save and publish, and then take a look at our home page here. I'm going to refresh. You can see that it just extends the logo to the edges here, all the way to the edge of the screen. If I were to expand this even more, which is hard to see for you, but yeah, you get that kind of full screen effect in the menu. All right, heading back to the customizer. Now, some cool stuff you can do with colors and font styles in the primary menu bar to really change, the appearance of your site. For example, you can increase the height. So if your logo feels a little bit too squished, you can make the menu bigger here. You can increase the text size as well, the letter spacing between the text. You can change the font itself and the font styles. Maybe I want to make this bold and uppercase. You can see we're getting a drastically different look here in our main menu bar. And you can adjust the colors as well. So let's say I want to, instead of using white, I want to make this, like a strong background color, like blue. So let's change the background color to blue. And since I've changed that to blue, I probably want to make my links more apparent. So I'm going to make those white. And if I were really doing this, I'd probably want to use a white logo as well, but I'm not going to bother changing that. You can imagine that's a white logo. And so yeah, there's some basic things you can do to kind of change the appearance of your primary navigation bar. But what I want to talk about next is the fixed navigation settings. And what these are, they affect your navigation bar in its fixed state, which means when it becomes attached to the top of your browser window. So if you notice when I scroll down here, the menu bar shrinks and becomes stuck to the top of the browser. We call that the fixed menu. So when it's fixed to the top of your screen, it is your fixed navigation, and then these fixed navigation settings can be used to customize the menu in that state, which means if you customize a color of your fixed navigation bar differently than you did your primary navigation state, it's going to transition into that. So we have a blue color for our background color right now. Let's say I change the fixed navigation to be green. In that case, it's going to fade from blue to green. You can also adjust the size. So as you can see, it's shrinking. If you want to make it shrink even more, you could bring down the size a bit. And then you can see you get a really big drastic change in size. Or you could make it bigger if you want for whatever reason. Or just make it the same size as your primary navigation to have no transition in size. But I like it me getting a little smaller. I think it looks nice. Another interesting thing you can do is use alpha transparencies in the colors. So, for example, if you have your big fixed navigation bar here and it's this bright green color and you can't really, you're worried that's kind of like obstructing the view of the page, well, you could just make it semi-transparent. For example, I might make it a semi-transparent black, bring down the alpha transparency, and then you can see through the menu, so it's not quite as distracting. And it transitions from that solid blue to this semi-transparent black. Now you can adjust the menu, the drop-down menu colors independently of the main menu bar. So for whatever reason you want your drop-down menus to be a different color, you can do that. So I'm going to change the drop-down menu background color to purple. And then when I hover over here, it's going to turn purple instead of blue. And you can do that for your secondary navigation menu as well. So speaking of that, let's take a look at some of these secondary navigation menu settings. Now, as I mentioned, the primary navigation is your big navigation bar here that has your primary menu and your logo, and the secondary nav sits above it. So much like your primary nav, you can make this full width if you like. So if you want to make those match, you can adjust the text size if you think that text is a little bit too small. You can adjust the letter spacing and the font style, all of that. So if we want to make it match a little bit more, we might make it all caps, increase the letter spacing, and increase the size, and they're kind of getting a more cohesive look. And just like the primary nav, you can adjust the background color. So if I want to make this something different, you can. I might make it purple. And you can adjust the drop-down menu background color independently. For whatever reason you want to make your drop-down menu a different color. We're getting a lot of colors in here now. It's getting a little crazy, but just to show you what you can do. You can also adjust the animations that are used for the drop-down menus in both the primary and secondary headers. So if I want to make this like a slide effect, you can choose that, which looks nice. And you can do that for the primary navigation as well. moving on to the header elements, this is where you can enable and disable items that appear in your navigation bar. So if you don't want to show the social icons or the search icon, you can disable those here, and you can adjust your phone number and email address that appear at the top here if you want to add your contact information. Now, so that was a basic overview of kind of all the different settings. Now there's also some cool things you can do, like using these settings in combination. One of the things that I like to do is change the header format to centered, and then use alpha transparency on the primary menu bar background color to bring down the opacity. So I'm going to go over to the background color. I'm going to change this to black, and then bring down the opacity to something a little bit lighter. So now we have this navigation bar at the very top of our page. We can even make it a little bigger. And since it's so big and it's centered, I've brought down the alpha transparency in the background. And now we have this effect where it's showing through to the background. So, for example, if I were to save and publish this and head over to our main site and actually adjust the builder settings for this page, there's some cool effects you can get with background images. So I might, let's say this is the home page of my site, I might want to use a nice background image for my slider here. So I might go over to my slider and upload a new background image for this area. And update. And so now we have this background image in our slider, and we have this transparent menu that kind of overlays it. And Divi is really smart about knowing when you use a transparent background image for your primary navigation bar, and we automatically extend the height of the first section on your page so that it has the opportunity to overlay like this without actually obstructing your content. So it's not going to overlay, the text on your slider and that kind of stuff. So you can even bring down this transparency to 0 and kind of have this cool effect where you have this, kind of floating menu and navigation. And then when you start to scroll down, it becomes fixed and shrinks to the top of your page like that. That's one example of kind of a cool way you can use these settings in combination. And it looks good with the centered inline format as well. So if I change to centered inline logo and check out that, that's a pretty cool effect as well, as you can see. So yeah, that's a basic overview of the header and navigation settings. There's a lot you can do here. So I encourage you to experiment and have fun playing with these settings. In this tutorial, I'm going to give you an overview of the Divi Library. The Divi Library is a place for you to save layouts that you've created, or even save individual modules, rows, or sections to be used later on a different page or even a different website. For example, let's say you spent a lot of time configuring this page in the Divi Builder, and the next time you want to build a page, you'd like to use that as a starting point, where you can simply save that entire page to your Divi Library. And then next time you're building a page, you can load that saved layout. It'll populate your page, and you can use that as a starting point. So this can save you a lot of time, especially when a lot of your pages might share some of the same elements. For example, let's say all of the pages on your site have this same footer section at the bottom with a call to action, and you want to mirror that across all the pages on your site. Well, instead of rebuilding that same section and module every time you add a new page, you can just save that section to your library, and when you create a new page, you can load it straight in, and it's going to save you a lot of time. And I think as you find yourself saving more and more items to your library, this library becomes a toolkit of sorts with all of the layouts and modules and sections and rows that you've created in the past, and you can use these to kind of jumpstart your new projects. So let's get started. When you're in your WordPress dashboard and you hover over the Divi link in the sidebar here, you're going to see a few options, and at the bottom you'll notice the Divi Library link, and if I click that, it's going to bring me into my library, and it's going to give me a list of all the library items, whether they be layouts, sections, rows, or modules that I've saved. Well, since this is a new website and I haven't actually saved any items to my library, there's nothing here, And so the next step is going to be to show you how to actually add an item to your library. So I'm going to head over to my home page here, and this is a page that I've built with the Divi builder. And if I edit it, you can see the layout that I've created here. Now, the library can house complete layouts, individual modules, sections, or rows. So any of those 4 items can be added to the library. If I wanted to save this entire page to the library and use that in the future, then I could do that by using this top level link here. It says Save to Library. This is going to save the entire page. So if I click this, you're just going to give your layout a name. I'm going to call it New Homepage and save. That's it. I've saved the whole layout to the page. And if I go over to my Divi library, you're going to see that new item listed. It's a layout type. So if I were to filter this by library item type, which are, like I said, pre-made layouts, section, rows, and modules, this would be a layout type because it's an entire page. And I can even edit this layout at any time from within the library. So if I wanted to modify this library item, you can do so from within the library, and then the next time you load that pre-made layout, those changes will be reflected. And so let's say I wanted to use this as the starting point for my new page. If I were to add a new page, instead of having to go through all the trouble of rebuilding that entire layout, well, this time when I use the Divi builder, I'm going to say load from library here, and then I'm going to go over to my add from library tab, and you'll see this new item that I've added appears here. And if I click load, it's going to add that to my page. And there you go. You've saved your first pre-made layout to your library, loaded it on a new page, and it's going to save you a lot of time. Now, not only can you save entire layouts, you can also save individual modules, rows, and sections. So, as an example, I'm going to go back to my home page here. Now, a very common configuration for home pages is this is to have a slider and then this section of blurbs here. Very common. So if you find yourself using this combination of modules quite often, every time you build a new site, well, why not just save this section to the library, call it homepage blurb section, and then the next time you build a page, you can load that right in instead of having to configure all these blurbs all over again. So I'm going to go back to my page. This time, instead of saving the entire layout to the library, I'm going to open up just this section that I'd like to save. And then at the bottom here, you're going to see 2 links. One is save and exit, which simply saves any changes you've made to the page itself. And then you also see save and add to library. What this will do is save any changes to your page, and it's also going to add that section to your library, and then you can use that section down the road. So I'm going to choose that option. I'm going to say save and add to library. And there's a few options here that I need to go over. The first one is obviously you're going to need to give your section a name, your library item a name, so you can identify it down the road. And like I said, I'm just going to call it homepage blurbs. So now I know whenever I make a new homepage and I want to have that double row of blurbs below the slider, I can just load in this section. Now the next option is save as global. And I'm going to go into a lot more detail about this option later on in this tutorial. But just a quick overview about what this means. A global library item appears exactly the same on all the pages that you add it to. And whenever you make a change to that library item, it gets updated and synced across all of the places that that global item is being used. So a good example of where this would be useful would be in that previous example I talked about earlier, which would be if you're creating a footer for your site and it has a call to action and it's mirrored, it's the same exact call to action on all your pages. Well, let's say you have this 20-page website and you've added this call to action at the bottom of your page. You've made it the same. It all has the same color, same background color, same text. And then one day you're redesigning your site and you want to make that call to action a different color. Well, in the previous scenario, you'd have to go to every single page, edit that module, change the background color, and do that 20 times. Well, in this case, since that module you want it to look the same on every page, what you could do is save that as a global section in your library, and then add that global section to all your pages, And if you at any time edit one of those global sections, it gets updated across all of those pages. So that's a basic overview of what a global library item is. In this case, I'm not gonna check that because, like I said, I'm gonna go over that in more detail later. Next, you can choose a category for your library item, and if you don't have any categories, you can create a new one. As people start building up their libraries, building up this web design toolkit of theirs, you're going to find that the more library items you create, the harder it is to find them in your library unless you've categorized them. So in this case, you might have a category of a category of library items for specific types of websites that you find yourself building often. And the next time you build a real estate website, for example, you go to your real estate category and you have all of these items that you can use to jumpstart your new design. So in this case, I'm just going to call it homepage. This will be my homepage category of all my homepage sections, I suppose. And then I'm going to click Save. And now this section has been added to my library. And if I go over to my library, you're going to see that in addition to that layout I added earlier, I'm now going to have a section item in my library called homepage blurbs, as you can see here. And I can edit this if I like, and if I'd like to change the way these blurbs look. And then every time I load this library item on the page, those changes will be reflected. So like I said, you can edit any of these and save just like you would a normal page. And so now let's try adding that section to a page. So I'm creating a new page. This is a new home page, and I'm going to use the Divi Builder. And this time I know that I want to have those blurbs below a full width slider. So I'm going to add a new section from my library by clicking the Add from Library link down here. So along with your normal Add Section buttons here, you can choose Add from Library. And when you do that, you're going to get a list of all of your library items. And I only have one section in my library. It's called Homepage Blurbs here. And if I click that, it's going to load it in. And yep, there's that section I saved to the library. And now it's been loaded on my new page. And again, it's going to save you a lot of time. Okay, using that same philosophy, you can also save rows and modules as well. So if you find yourself using a specific module, for example, let's say that I've spent a lot of time on this blurb module in the advanced settings and the custom CSS settings. In fact, I've really modified this module. I've customized the size and the color of the icon. Maybe I've added some custom CSS animations, and it's taken me hours to do, and it's perfect. And down the road, I want to use that same exact module as a starting point. I don't want to have to reconfigure all those advanced design settings and custom CSS settings. I just want to save that for later use. Well, that's a perfect way to use the library. So I'm not going to go through the time of configuring all these options, but let's just say I've spent a lot of time on these advanced design settings and it looks great and I want to save this for later. Well, you can do that by just clicking the Save and Add to Library link, just like you would a section. You're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Special Blurb. And then, as we saw before, we have your Save as Global option and your category options, but we also have a new set of options here, which are the selective sync options. And if you'd like more details about creative ways to use selective sync, I have a different tutorial about that, so be sure to check that out. And I also have an individual tutorial that talks about creative ways to use global modules, but for now I'm just going to give you a basic overview of what selective sync means. Basically, whenever you create a module, you'll notice that you can edit 3 different tabs. You have General Settings, Advanced Design Settings, and Custom CSS Settings. As a general philosophy, everything that you need to create a great module in Divi can be found in the General Settings tab. And if you want even more control, we've added a whole slew of options into the Design Settings. And basically anything you could ever want to do design-wise can be done in those advanced design settings, but because there's so many of options, we've decided to separate them into their own tab. And the third tab would be the Custom CSS tab. And if you're a developer and you don't really want to use our advanced design controls, you'd rather just code yourself, well, you can go over to the Custom CSS tab and start adding some custom CSS for your module. Now what the selective sync does is when you're saving this item to your library, you can choose which tabs you'd like to save. So in this case, I've spent a lot of time modifying the advanced design settings and custom CSS, but when I load this new blurb module onto my page, I'm going to want to use new unique general settings, right? I'm going to want to add a new title and some new content. So there's really no reason for me to save the general settings into this item. I really just want to save the advanced design settings and custom CSS. So in this example, I'm only going to save those. And then when I load up the blurb into a new page, I'll just fill out my general settings, and those advanced design settings and CSS settings that I spent so much time developing are going to be all there for me. I'm going to add it to my homepage category and save. Okay, so I've saved that blurb to the library, and I've only synced to the tabs, the two tabs that I really care about. And so if I go over to my library, you're going to see that new module has been added. So now I've added a module, a section, and a layout. And like I said, as this library grows, you can filter the view here by type. So if I wanted to just see all the modules I've added to the library, I can just change to modules and filter, and then you're just going to see the module that I added here, my special blurb module. And at any time you can edit this, like I said. So you want to change anything about this. And as you can see here, since I only synced the advanced design settings and custom CSS settings, only those tabs appear. And if I were to add this to a new page, you can do so. So let's add a new page. And I'm going to add my new special blurb to a 3-column row here. So I'm going to click Insert Modules, and this time, instead of adding a new module, I'm going to add from library. So just like we did for sections, add from library. Here's my special blurb. I'm going to load it in, and then I would go ahead and configure the general settings, input my title and link and URL and all that good stuff. And like I said, all my advanced design settings and custom CSS settings would be saved. So that's a great way to use the library for blurbs and any module that you've spent a lot of time designing and would like to reuse in the future. So the next and final thing you can save to your library are rows. So let's say I have a row here, and just like a section, let's say it's a common row that I use quite often, and I'd like to save that to the library. Perhaps I've spent a lot of time developing this particular row to have a very specific use case, and I don't want to spend the time developing that every time. For example, let me clear this layout and start over and just give you a more specific example of why this might be useful. So let's say I'm working on this page. I'm going to update it and take a look. So I'm working on this new home page. Oops. Forgot to give it a title. New page. So I'm working on this new page, and I would like to create a very unique row below the blurbs here, and I want to make it a full width row and have 4 images next to each other below the blurbs here, kind of like a full width portfolio module, but instead I'm going to use just images. And so I'm going to spend some time making this row just the way I like it. I'm going to add a new row. I'm going to make it a 4-column row. I'm going to add an image into each of these columns. I'm going to change the image to be different for each column. All right, so I've added a new row to my page. And like I said, I want to spend some time making this row a little bit different than your average row. And so instead of having these images and standard width, I want to remove the spacing between each image, remove the spacing below the row, and make them go full width and create a whole different look for this row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the row settings here. I'm going to make this row full width. I'm going to bring the gutter width down to 0. I'm going to remove the padding on the bottom of this row. I'm going to save and exit, and I'm also going to remove the padding on the bottom of this section and update. So in this example, I've taken this row and completely transformed it into a row that looks way different and has a very different type of use. And so I might, as you can see here, all the images become full width. I remove the gutters. And so this is a particular type of row that is really quite useful in this particular situation where I'm adding images to each column. And so, you know, instead of having to do that every time I want to create this new look, I can just save this row to the library, and then anytime I want to make a full width kind of image gallery like this, I can just load it in and save myself a lot of time. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over to this row, and I'm going to save and add to library. I'm going to call it full width image row. And I'm going to add it to my homepage category and save and exit. And then, like I said, anytime I want to create a similar looking row on a new page, I can just load that in like I always do by using the Add from Library tab. So I can go down, click Add Row. Instead of using a new row, I can do Add from Library and then choose my full width image row. And there you go. So yeah, that's a basic overview of all the different, all the 4 things you can add to your library. You can add completely built pages. You can add sections, rows, and also individual modules. Now, the last thing I wanted to touch on is to go back and take a look at the global modules. And like I said, I have a whole tutorial for this if you'd like to go look at the global module tutorial with some you know, creative ideas for how to use global modules. But in this case, I'm just going to show you how they work. Okay, so let's say I have this call to action at the bottom of my page, and to show you what that is, it's at the bottom here. It says, look no further, get started today, join now. And at the bottom of every page, I want to have this call to action that helps convince users to sign up to my service. And I want to mirror that on the bottom of every single page of my site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this whole section as a global section. I'm going to go over here, I'm going to say save to library, I'm going to call it global footer, I'm going to make it a global item, save it to my homepage category, and then click save and add to library. And what you'll notice is that when you create and save a global item, whether it be a section, row, or module, it turns green. And this is important because it signifies to you that when you edit this module, it's going to change. It's going to change on every single site that it's been used on, every single page that it's been used on. And when you open up the modal settings, they're green as well, just to give you another reminder you're editing a global item. And so I'm going to update this page, and then I'm going to create a new page, and I'm going to add that global section to my new page, just like I did on the one I just created. I'm going to use the Divi Builder. I'm going to just load a layout really quick to get started. And then at the very bottom of this page, I want to add that global section. So I'm going to click Add from Library. I'm going to go over to the Library tab. And click the global footer section that I just saved, and you can see it's green. So whenever you're in your library, you can identify the global items from their color. So I'm going to click the global footer, and it's added. And if I bounce back to my other page here, you can see now I have 2 pages. Both of them have the this global item at the bottom of them. Okay, so I'm going to publish this new page. And take a look at the front end really quick. Okay, so here's this new page I built, and at the bottom I have this new global section with my call to action. And if you look at my other page, I have the same thing at the bottom here. So now I have these this global section being added to 2 pages. And I'm going to show you now if I edit these, it's going to update on both pages. So that's the beauty of the global module. So I'm going to open up the call to action module inside of my global section, and I'm going to modify the section, not the module, and I'm going to change the background color to purple and save. And I'm going to update that. And now when I refresh both of these pages that have this shared global section on it, you're going to see that they both turn purple. And there you go. So that's the power of the global library item. You can have these items mirrored across any number of pages. You can update them once and they get updated everywhere. So this can save you a ton of time. And like I said, be sure to check out my global module tutorial where I talk about some other creative ways to use global modules, rows, and sections, especially in combination with selective sync, which I mentioned earlier. And yeah, that's a basic overview of the Divi library. In this tutorial, I'll be talking about global library items. Now, what a global library item is a section, row, or module that looks exactly the same on every single page you add it to. And if you update it in one place, it gets updated on all the pages where it's being used. For example, if you have a page, a website, and on the bottom of every single website you have a footer area and there's a call to action module there that's, you've placed it on every single page because you want your visitors to convert no matter what page they're on. So you're inviting them to sign up for your service at the bottom of every single page. And so you've added this module 20 times on all 20 of your pages. And then one day you decide to update the color. Well, then you have to go through every single page and update the color for every single instance of that module. Well, that's the perfect opportunity to turn it into a global module. And what that would do is it would be mirrored, the same module would be mirrored on every single page. And if you updated it on any of those pages, it gets the updates get pushed to all instances of that global module, so it saves you a lot of time. And you can use it for more reasons than just individual modules. You could create a whole footer area, with widgets, with a sidebar widget or whatever, and have that mirrored on every single page to create your own kind of customizable footer. And so in this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about global modules. And global modules are library items, so if you want to learn more about the Divi library in general, be sure to check out the tutorial on that back on the documentation page. But for this tutorial, I'm going to focus purely on the global aspect of saving library items. Okay, so in my previous example, I talked about creating a global call to action module, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I have a page here, and I have a call to action at the bottom. And I'd like to add that to every single page on my website. And so because I know I'm going to be using it everywhere and I want it to look the same everywhere, well, I might as well make that a global library item. So just to be clear, what I'm talking about is this call to action here at the bottom. It says, look no further, get started today, join now. And I'm going to turn that into a library item and then make it global. So to do that, I'm going to turn this whole section into a global section. I'm going to go to the section settings. I'm going to click save and add to library to add to the library. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it global CTA. And then I'm going to make sure to make this a global option. And I'm going to save. And now you're going to notice that it's going to change colors. It's going to turn green. And that's our way of telling you that that is a global item. It's important to know when you're editing a global item because the repercussions are a little bit greater if you have it mirrored on your whole site. For instance, you make a change on any of those pages, all those changes are going to get pushed to every single page that uses that module. And so we turn it green, and we also turn the modal setting box green as well. So you always know whether or not you're editing a global item. Okay, so I've turned this into a global module, and it's also been added to my library. And so if I create a new page and add that section to the bottom, it's going to mirror what I created here. So let's do that. I'm going to go over to Add New and create a new page. I'm just going to call it Test Page 2. I'm going to use the builder, and I'm going to load up a pre-made layout really quickly here. And then at the bottom of the page, I'm going to add that call to action. So I'm going to click the Add from Library link here to add my section. And then I'm going to look for my global CTA section, and you can tell that it's green. That means that it's global. So you can look, if you're trying to add a global section, you're going to want to look for the green color here. I named it Global CTA, so there it is. I'm going to click that and add it. And you can see it adds that section that I just saved. And so I'm going to update or publish this page. And now I have two pages. I have this one over here, my original page with the global section at the bottom, and I have my new page here with the global section at the bottom as well. Now, if we were to take a look at both these pages on the front end, you'll see that both of them have the call to action at the bottom, and the call to action looks the same on both pages because this global module is being shared. So here's the new page that I created, and at the bottom we have our call to action here. And if we swing over to our other page, the original page, we have our call to action there at the bottom too, and they both look the same. Now, just to show you how this works, if I were to edit one of those, whether I'm editing it on either page or even if I'm editing it within the Divi library itself, those changes are going to get pushed to both of those pages. So as an example, let's try changing the text. So right now it says look no further, sign up today. Let's say on this day we have a deal going, and so I want to sweeten the deal a little bit and say look no further, sign up today for 20% off. And normally this would be quite annoying to have to go to every page just to showcase they're having this deal. And so instead I'm just going to do it once, and it's going to get pushed to both pages. So if I refresh this page, you see that it's been updated, and if we go back to the page we didn't even edit, you'll see that it's been updated as well. Same thing goes for the rest of the settings as well. If we want to change the color, let's say you're rebranding your site and you said, you know what, the orange, that's not our company color anymore. I'm thinking that purple is going to be our company color now. So I can change this section setting, the background color, to purple and update. And then if we go back to both of our pages where this module exists, you can see that it turns to purple on both pages. Yes, that's the basic idea of global modules. And yeah, they can be used for any library type. So you can create a global module, a global row, or a global section. And there are also some creative ways that you can combine global modules with selective sync. Now, we have a tutorial about selective sync in the Divi library, so be sure to go check that out. And I go into more detail about how to use selective sync and global modules together. But just at the basic idea, selective sync allows you to save only settings from certain tabs into the library. So you might save a global module that only syncs the advanced design settings and custom CSS, but leaves the general settings unique to that instance of the global module. For example, I could create a slider on the top of my page and use the advanced design settings and custom CSS to create a unique style, and then save that as a global module, but selectively unsync the general settings tab. Now I can have sliders at the top of all my pages across my site that share this unique style that is synced in the global module under advanced settings, but each instance of the slider can have their general settings to themselves. So be sure to check that out. Yeah, and that's a basic overview of using global library items in Divi.